All right. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome to April's class inside the Living on Lemonade group. This class is about authenticity. I feel very grounded right now, and I'm very excited to talk about this topic because I think it's a really heavy hitter, and we can only kind of scratch the surface in the first hour. However, there's always room to bring up the subject in later trainings, or I have a special announcement at the end, and that we'll be talking about authenticity through that program. So, as always, let's start with some grounding breaths. If you've had a busy day or whenever you're watching this, if you just need a break, and just take a moment, take a mindful pause. And we're going to take 3 or 4 deep breaths. Big inhale, you can hold at the top. Exhale longer than your inhale. Hand over your heart if you need a little extra kind of somatic support, if you've been a little bit stressed out or, activated. And you can breathe in your nose, out through your nose or your mouth. If you need an extra, I would say breathe out your nose, or sorry, your mouth, and then like feel your shoulders drop. Just feel your body actually relaxing. Notice the sensations around you. You can keep your eyes open, keep your eyes closed. Hey, Rebecca, just see how that feels. If you want to take a quick inventory before you start the deep breaths, notice how you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, stress-wise or just activation. And then after a few breaths, see if there's a change there. And you could, of course, keep taking deep breaths while I talk. It's just, if I was doing it for a while, then we wouldn't be doing the training, right? So I'm going to take a few deep breaths with you, 3 or 4, and then we'll get started. Imagine the day just kind of washing away. If you need a little extra movement, you can do that too. If you need to shrug your shoulders or just kind of round them out, move to side to side. Feel your lungs taking in all that oxygen, fueling your body. Your hands over your heart. See if you can feel your heartbeat. See if you can feel it changing as you take these deep breaths. Kind of sink back into your body. These deep breaths not only bring us back into the present moment, they sink us back into our bodies. We're having more of like, we're aware of the present moment and our experience. And it helps to it tells our body we're safe, and it helps to bring that part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, kind of back online if we've been a little bit scattered throughout the day. These nice breaths help to just kind of bring us back and allow us to absorb more. So there's lots of reasons that I start each class with breaths. Hey, Christine, I'm glad you could make it. Okay, authenticity. I love this topic. I could talk about it all day because, I've always been one who dances to the beat of my own drum. Always, always, always. And there was a long time, and I'm kind of coming out of it in a sense, but I'm also still, I feel like I have a good sense of who I am. But there are times that things have been dimmed. Life happens essentially. I have only these as notes, which is like mind blowing. I'm telling you, this intuition stuff, doing this work, following the nudges. I teach it in a completely different way now, and it's so magical. It's so fun. So where I want to start with this is I want to start back. There's kind of 2 things I want to talk about to give a little bit of a baseline understanding about the roots of authenticity and where we kind of stray off the path. So if we look back to our evolution as a species, as humans, back before everything was kind of industrialized and we, and especially for Western culture, a lot of other cultures, they still have like multiple generations living under the same roof and stuff, but we don't tend to do that as a society. But if we were to look back at our more primitive selves, we lived in villages together, and there was a sense of community and belonging, safety within these communities that we lived within. And the idea of, if we were to, actually, just give me one sec. I want to start somewhere else. Okay, I got it. When we're born, I want to talk about when we're born. We come into the world as these like beautiful beings, right? These beautiful, magical, perfect beings. Especially if you've had children, you just know like they couldn't be any better, right? We come in perfect. We know that we like, on our own level, we know that we don't think there's anything wrong with us. And then when you think about like little kids, they are so unapologetically themselves, and that's what I love about kids. There's no filter. And sometimes it can be a little bit embarrassing because we have like our societal norms. So if they say something a little bit, um, that like against someone, or that could be perceived as, um, I don't know. They just like they observe, and they just blurt things out. So sometimes it's a little, it can feel a little insensitive, but they're not doing it on purpose. We have this connection when we're little with the essence of who we are, and we just dance around in life exactly as that little being. It's not until we start to learn and grow and become more of society and part of society more, that we start to be conditioned, right? We start to learn manners and how to act in certain situations and what to do, what not to do. And while that's great in some ways, it can also really damper that kind of light within us. And I got a visual earlier when I was thinking about this, and it was just one of those like really profound moments that I was like, whoa. It made me take pause. And I think I even said it out loud quietly because I was at work, but I just had this realization. And the image that I got was just like, we come into this world as like a light, and then all of these things happen to us. As we learn, our parents impose all of their beliefs on us and stuff. And when we first start out, we're essentially just a sponge for all of this programming and belief systems and stuff that really aren't ours, but we don't know better because we're just learning how to kind of be in the world. And it's like putting on all these like layers. I was saying it in the last program I ran. I was just like, it's like we put on all these coats, and then when if we decide we want to live a more conscious life, we spend the rest of our life basically taking off all the coats. And when that happens, when we put all these layers of the conditioning, etc. on, that light dims. And sometimes, especially based on our experiences, if we experience different types of trauma, it doesn't have to be a big T, it could be small T trauma, but these little things that can have profound impacts on us and our character, our identity. Sometimes we can even forget that we have a light, right? We forget that authenticity, that's that authentic part of ourselves, that it lives within us. And but it's like, consciously if we forget, but there's still always like that soul. The soul knows that it lives inside of us, and it wants to be the one who leads the way. And we kind of, the way I was seeing it is kind of like we still want to chase that essence, that feeling, but we forget that we even have it inside of us, and we start to look for those experiences outside of ourselves. We start valuing other people's opinions over us. And now I want to move a little bit into evolution. So I was talking about how we live in these villages and stuff, and there's a sense of connection, and truly our survival hinged on being connected to others, right? We took care of each other um, for the real threats. And if we did something that would banish us from the community, if we were outcast, there was a very real threat of death and danger. So there's a sense of we had to conform, we had to fit in order to survive. Now, looking through the ages, our social dynamic is quite different, but our brain hasn't caught up, especially that like that amygdala, that fear center, that emotional center. Its its only job is to keep us safe, and the amygdala is basically broadcast out, and that's our ego. It's like it's filtered, our ego is filtered through our amygdala. Now, when we translate that into today, it's like social death. So it's not this fear of actual real death, but social death can feel super heavy, as you know, right? If you get bullied, I was bullied all through school. High school was pretty much fine. There were a few people that were really unkind to me, but it is what it is. But prior to that, I had lots of experiences where I was not accepted. And when we can think of it from that stance of our brain still thinks like, oh my God, you can't stand out. If you get banished, you're gonna die. Our survival response to that is to change who we are, how we act, who we be, so that we will fit in. And that's when we start to put those coats on and start to dim that light, because we are more focused on fitting in than we are in just belonging. And the difference between fitting in and belonging is fitting in is when we change ourselves so that a group will accept us, and belonging is when we show up as ourselves and we're accepted by those around us. There's a big difference, and it's all about intention. And when we start to wake up to that, we can start to take the actions towards shifting that. And it's a journey. When we start to move away from wanting to fit in, we lose friends. And some might say, oh, you've changed. And while that is somewhat true, there's also the idea that we're just we're changing from the external and how we're validated externally, but we're just finding ourselves from an internal perspective and then leading from within. I think there's a power to that. How's everyone doing? Is this landing so far? Any aha moments? Any questions? Let me know in the comments. I don't know if I hope I'm getting them. Can someone just say hi so I can see if the comments are working? Okay, perfect. Thanks, Christine. So if there's any questions along the way, let me know. If you're just like something's landing, I do like to interact a little bit. It kind of like builds me up too. I'm just going to look at my notes really quickly to make sure I'm kind of on track. Oh, very interesting. When we were little, so we have kind of the evolutionary part, we have like the layers that get added on. And because of that, when we were little, we if you've heard of like oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Connect Give me a second. Sometimes my brain just cuts out. Attachment theory. You've heard of attachment theory, attachment styles. These are established like very early on. And depending on, there's lots of factors. And this isn't a topic I'm anywhere near an expert with. I'm just scratching the surface. So I want to give like a very kind of general intro, because as I learn, I could take the work deeper. I can teach you in a deeper way. But essentially what I've been learning is those first, like, especially like few months, few years, we are like, our biggest thing is we need to have like secure attachments, because then, right, we'll be accepted by our community. And when things happen, if we have a parent that is dysregulated or emotionally unavailable. And when I talk about dysregulated, it's like the nervous system. We are very much like we develop as a result of co-regulating with our parents, the people that are caregiving with us. So if they're super dysregulated and reactive and stuff like that, we will, and our body, like the wisdom that's building up at those times, it's just so crucial. That's what we learn with our bodies. And not to say for any parents out here, there's no shame around that. This is literally like we're just having this human experience. These things down the road, we go in and we heal it and we change the patterns and stuff, right? If we want to do the work. But we do the best we can with what we have. And the truth is our Western society is just like hella dysregulated in general. Like I don't know if I know anyone that's like really super regulated. It's just kind of not the way that we are as a society, especially with the 9 to 5 kind of clock thing and this whole structure of this 40-hour work week that really was designed to still have the mom at home, homemaker and stuff. And now we have this dynamic of both partners or single parents, they're doing it all, and it's not designed to be that way. So of course we're dysregulated. Of course it's just an absolute like shit show, right? For lack of a better word in the moment. So we have these experiences very early on in very formative years that if we were to choose, we like our authenticity, of course, right? We like to show up with the essence of who we are, but especially if we get a little older, we're starting to run around, we're little toddlers. If there's a situation where we have to choose between connection to our caregiver, connection to the people that we want to belong or fit in with, and authenticity, connection will always win. This is why these pieces of us get chipped away. Because when we start to kind of be bogged down by societal pressures of like how to be, and our parents tell us, we get shamed, or just like you're too much, don't do this. And it's like this is who we are inside of us. Like I've always been a very emotional, like big emotions kid. Oh, all the big emotions. I could talk about this all day. I had like, oh man, I had emotional bursts like way older than I look back and kind of cringe, but I also understand that I was also very in a large way a product of my environment, right? And things weren't always great at home. It was very dysregulated my entire childhood. So I'm like, now that I'm learning about nervous system work, trauma, early childhood development, neuroscience, psychology, I'm like, I understand it. And when we can start to understand these things, we can start to give ourselves grace and compassion, and we can start to reparent ourselves for the things that basically for the survival mechanisms that we put into place, unconsciously, subconsciously, so that we could survive and, still survive and get through what we wanted, because the amygdala doesn't care if we thrive. It just wants us to like get by, procreate, and continue the species. Um, these parts of us get chipped away. We will always choose connection, and this is why, if hands up if anyone in here is a people pleaser or an actively recovering people pleaser. This is an exact result of this. Along the way, we have chosen connection over our own authenticity. And when we felt rejected, and there can be traumas around that, our self-worth gets diminished, right? And people pleasing. Did I say this, or was this in my head? Just gonna be like, I'm gonna be true here. When we aren't authentic with ourselves, we start to look at external things. Yes, I said this at the very beginning. We start to reach outside of ourselves for ways to essentially like feel safe, to self-soothe, trauma can come into that, right? When we look at things like addictive behaviors, and this is like another topic I don't want to get into, but I'm just going to mention it quickly. It's a lot of it's like about escapism and stuff. So we're trying to escape these big feelings or the shame that we feel around the things that we decided about ourselves at ages that we really wasn't appropriate to make those judgments about ourselves because our brain wasn't online enough to actually be able to discern. So we end up people pleasing. There's lots of patterns. And if you've watched some of my other trainings and I try to talk about these things many times because sometimes we're not ready to receive it in this way. Sometimes we need a reminder when we're doing this work. And there's nothing wrong with talking about these things many times. I follow people who just like, yeah, they're kind of a broken record, but there's just that one time where I'm like, oh my God, and I have the aha moment, even though I've heard it 80 other times. We I just need a couple breaths. I don't know why I'm a little scattered. Join in with me if you need it. Sometimes we just need a breath. We look outside of ourselves to validate and get what we've learned not to give ourselves. Is that profound? Whew. Okay. Yeah. We forget our light and we look to others, we look to others' validation, and when we don't get that, we're like, oh no, we have to get it or we won't survive. So we start people pleasing and we further lose ourselves. The antidote to people pleasing, as I was saying before I needed a breath, which thank you for holding that space for me, is boundaries. And when we can create boundaries, we can start to it starts to kind of bring us out of survival, right? Because then we're not constantly looking at what's outside of us to feel safe or to feel safe, feel comfortable. I'm just gonna look at the comments quick. Becca was talking about attachment stuff fascinates you both professionally and personally. It's incredible and it's so profound. I cannot, like, I want to do a really deep dive, but lately I've been focusing on nervous system work and trauma. I've been going into like trauma informed stuff and the work of Gabor Mate. He is the author of When the Body Says No. Incredible. Look him up if you're interested in trauma. He frames it in such a beautiful way that discussing this topic is no longer scary. And once I have completed more of his trainings and stuff and really embodied the wisdom, it's definitely something I'm going to be taking deeper and teaching on. But I'm very conscious that I think as a manifestor in human design, I get these ideas and I just want to like blurt it out into the world. But what I'm learning is there's like a marinating, there's a time that things need to kind of marinate and develop on their own. It's like we we plant the seed, but it's not ready for harvest right away. We have to nourish it with water, show up, do the things, and then like it takes time for it to be ready to harvest. So this course I'm going to talk about at the end is something that I've been nourishing and it's I feel like it's ready to harvest. I had a couple analogies. One of them I already talked about. Okay, I had forgotten it earlier and then I remembered in the shower because I talk about those non-thinking moments and like intuition will speak to you in those non-thinking moments, showering, driving, out for a walk, out in nature, gardening, knitting, anything that's meditative. So it came back to me because I was like trying to rack my brain for it earlier and I was like, oh no, what is it? Anyway, I had this understanding come to me while I was driving to work this morning and then I couldn't write it down, so I forgot it. This is a comparison for how our brain hasn't caught up to us in terms of like how it perceives things and danger and and it just doesn't jive with how society works now. I was thinking about it as like, you know how we have wisdom teeth and we have oh my gosh, an appendix. The appendix was for when we were more we ate more plant matter, right? Because like mice and stuff have them. It's essentially useless, but our body still, we're still born with one. Our evolution hasn't like cut it out yet. Same with wisdom teeth. We don't need wisdom teeth anymore. The way we've evolved, our jaw is smaller. Uh, we don't need it for where we are now in society and just the way that we live as a species. It's the same thing with our brains. So part of the work, if we're on this journey, we want to live a more conscious life, we have to be able to like take those layers off and have compassion for ourselves this entire way, because so much of our journey up until now, for one, if you've been in survival mode and done things that you know no longer serve you and they're actually holding you back from where you want to go, the first thing you have to do is be able to look at it and accept it and understand that everything that you've experienced up to this present moment has brought you to where you are. And when we can start to change, shift our mindset around it, we can start to understand that there's wisdom in all of that. And we can start to create it as kind of like our survival guide, right? Take the nugget out of the difficult experiences that we have, start to do the inner child work, the reparenting, um, shadow work, all of the different things that help us to kind of understand our own condition and our own experiences and just look at it from a loving lens. And then when we can see it and understand it, we can neutralize it, we can accept it, we can love it, we can let it go. And then it no longer holds us back, because the patterns that we kind of default to, that were survival mechanisms for a time to get us through something that our brain wasn't sure if we would, it all serves a purpose, right? But when we get out of that and we're going into a new chapter, our soul's moving us into a new place, we can't bring all that stuff with us. And when we resist it, Jenny, we were talking about change earlier. Everything changes, right? That's the only constant. When we resist it, this is where we cause our own suffering, and we're trying to like move forward, but we've got this anchor of all these things. Sometimes it's mindsets, it can be beliefs, it can be survival mechanisms. Does that is that landing? Um, and we can attach our identity to these things, and then it ends up not allowing us to move forward. So if we want to live an authentic life, we have to be able to kind of explore these things of what has kept me from being who I want to be. And if we feel like we're in a place where we've completely forgot who we are and we have to rediscover it, sometimes we get into darker places than other times, right? But what brings you joy? Think about that. That's the first question I think of. This is pretty much just unscripted now. What brings you joy? Because when you get that lit up feeling, that expansive feeling, like you get giddy. Everyone know that feeling? When you can connect with things that give you that feeling, that essence, that's how you connect with that inner part of you, especially that like inner child. You can start to have a dialogue, have a conversation, connect back in with that version of yourself before all the coats, all the layers were put on you that dimmed your light. What gave you joy? You can take a scroll back through memory lane and think back to times where just you're so unapologetically you. And one of the things you can get curious about is, what are the things that people people maybe labeled you as, especially earlier in life before you had really again, if you feel like you've disconnected from your authentic self, before you had done that, like, you're too emotional, you're too loud. Like, what were the twos for you? What were you too something of? That was your essence. And it's also your superpower. Someone might call me too emotional, but you better believe I have always been the friend that when someone's going through a difficult time, they reach out to me because I can hold space for people. I can sit beside someone and let them cry on me, around me, and it's not awkward. I can hold them and cry with them, and they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel, there's I can be in the present moment with people who are suffering and in a difficult place. But that's part of my emotionality. I can feel and really tap into the human experience, especially difficult ones, because I've had 20 plus years with grief and navigating that among all the other things, right? We all have a journey. So what are the nuggets that you can take out of that people may have like labeled you as to something? Those are the nuggets of your best self. And what I've started realizing over the last few years is the things that um I've been criticized so harshly on over the years are the things I now love the most about myself. Jenny says, too bossy is what I would be told. You're a leader. You know how to take charge. You know how to organize things. Does that resonate? Can you do that? You're a leader. And that's not a bad thing. This means that you can have positive influence on people and you can help people do things. You can be a leader. Rebecca, I've been accused of being too emotional, too dramatic my entire life. Again, emotions are a superpower. Emotions are a superpower. And in a society that is so absolutely disconnected from our emotions that I believe in my belief system, take what you want, leave the rest. We suffer so much in this society. Like, man, we want to talk about authenticity and the whole emotions thing. Like last month was all on emotions. If you haven't seen that or listened to it, definitely tune in. I got a little heated at the end because I got beef about emotions, but that's because I was always told I was too much. I was too emotional. I was too dramatic. Yeah, my emotions were too big. For one, I struggled, and because my surroundings was very dysregulated, I didn't know what to do with all the emotions, right? I didn't know, I wasn't supported in them. I didn't know how to regulate myself. So it made it difficult at the start to kind of like identify and be able to just like self-soothe a little bit. Now I have more tools. So when I look back on those experiences and go, oh, a little cringy, I can give myself love because I understand the circumstance around it and that I didn't know what to do at the time. And I was being reactive. I was reacting from a place of survival. I wasn't stepping back and responding. And of course I wasn't. I was a child, right? Can people relate to that? Yes, I'm just reading the comments here. Rebecca's like, yeah, they're having a little conversation about what bossy and leader and yeah, it's interesting what people will say. And another thing I'll just add is when people, oh man, I could go so many directions with this. When people essentially put us down for, you know, big ways that we are, it's because there's a part of them that isn't owning that also lives inside of them. We all have these things because when you think about it, if and those are triggers, right? We could have a conversation and someone gets like hella triggered, but someone else doesn't mean anything to them. The things that live inside, it has to live inside of us to cause an uprise. And it could be, we could get triggered based on an experience when we were little that we were told this whatever, and then we made a decision. So for example, and not saying this happened, Jenny, but saying you're bossy, as kids, it's super normal because we want to choose connection over authenticity to then make that wrong about ourselves. So that kid that, someone who tells you they're bossy, or especially like later on, they could have also been shamed for the same thing, and they made a decision. They created a belief around that. And especially if it kind of ended up embedded as part of their identity, it can be a wound that we carry around, right? So these things that we feel triggered about, we have to kind of look at. And a lot of the times, like many of them are actually our strengths. So maybe it hits us in a certain way. If someone tells us we're too this, too that, especially if there's a pattern, we've been shamed for it. But when we can start to get curious about it and just look at it and say, hey, like, what's actually wrong with that? Now that we're older adults, we can discern, we can, you know, open it up and see what it actually is made of in a ways that we couldn't when we were little. We can decide, hey, there's nothing wrong with being bossy. That means I know how to lead. It means I'm a kick-ass leader, and I know how to take charge of situations, lead people through things. I can initiate things. I'm organized, probably some time management skills here. These are things to admire. We can decide when we're older that those things that we were put down for, we can decide that those are actually our superpowers. And this is the way that we start to take that road back to leading an authentic life. We start to inhabit those qualities of ourselves again, right? Instead of pushing it down, pushing it away, and making ourselves wrong for it, we start to say, hey, my emotions are my superpower. I can help people. I can hold space for people and not be ashamed for it. And people appreciate it, right? I can lead people. I could be a manager. Rebecca says, you were the first person who ever talked to me about the neutrality of emotions, that emotions are neither good nor bad, that we can just sit and let emotions pass through. That's what they are. They are just part of our human experience. The problem lies when we start to label them, right? We start to label them as good or bad, because then if they're bad, again, especially if there's a risk of losing connection and, oh my God, we're going to get kicked out of the community, we start to suppress those things. And emotions are messengers. It's also energy in motion. It's moving through our body. When we can actually sit with an emotion and feel the full essence of it and get curious, there's something really intense. Maybe we don't always have to label like the root of it or anything. Sometimes when we're just doing this work, we can have a buildup of emotion. It's like our body's finally like, oh my God, I can actually let this out. And things well up. You know, when you have a conversation with someone you feel safe with, and you've been going through maybe a difficult time, and all of a sudden the floodgates open. It's like you've given that signal to your body, like, oh my God, I don't have to hold it in anymore. And this stuff comes up, and sometimes we can't stop it. And we don't need to, especially if we're in like around safe people we feel safe, or a place that we feel safe. Our emotions are meant to be expressed, not suppressed. So definitely a good lesson that has helped me is starting to neutralize emotions. They're not good or bad. They might be uncomfortable, and that's probably why we want to make them wrong, right? But when we're uncomfortable, that's also our body telling us that, we need to look at it. We feel triggered. That's something inside of us that, if we want to be able to move forward, we need to look at that thing, because it's holding us back. These are the anchors that hold us from living a fuller, more authentic life. Um, yeah. Are there any questions? How are we doing? I'm just gonna look at my notes. I pretty much covered everything. How are we doing in here? It's a big topic, hey? But I don't know, I just feel like it's so important. And I still have a hard time expressing myself for sure. I think it's going to be lifelong because there's just those really impactful experiences that we have, and we can't possibly just like line them up. Um okay, Rebecca. We can't just line them up and heal them all in 8 seconds, right? It's just like as we heal one layer, the next one becomes available. It's like onion layers, right? We can't get to like the real core without getting through the other ones too. And they come up as they come up in the time that they need. Okay, on to the big announcement. So I am announcing a new program. It is for entrepreneurs, and it is called Authentic Business Foundation. And it's really interesting because I didn't have plans to like talk about authenticity this month and then launch a program essentially like around authenticity in our own business. That's just the way it works, right? That's the magic. It's going to be a group program. The container will be in a Facebook group. It's a 5-week long series. Each week will be a new topic. I'll go live and talk about different topics, and I'll create workbooks or homework. The fun thing when you're inside a program with me, that's like a paid program, is each lesson we do a meditation. So we talk about kind of the theory, and then I come up with ways to actually take the work deeper and like literally like embody it and have experiences, and just it's a different way of kind of taking in the information and absorbing it and digesting it. The last the last program that I did was just I still don't even have the words for it. My delivery was different than previous. Like I say, I do these little notes not long before I teach, and I also go into a meditation and I see what I'm supposed to deliver. I see what the meditation is supposed to be about, just kind of the beginning of it, and then I get going, and then it just flows through me. It's like it's so cool, and it was so deep. It was incredible. So it's called Authentic Business Foundation. And some of the topics, so for example, one of the topics will be setting our compass to align with our values. This is like the undercurrent. These are topics that are not taught that I've really seen. Well, my coach does it, but she's a unicorn. Most of the trainings, especially if you're in the network marketing industry, I've never seen it in the network marketing industry. These types of trainings and this type of work, looking at it from an entirely different lens. If you agree with me, let me know what you think. This is the way I kind of see it. A lot of the trainings are very focused on strategy, what to do, and when you're not doing, how to do better and how to do more, and do. So much doing. But we don't look so much at like the undercurrent energy and what's actually like going on inside of us. And if we're even connected to the work that we're doing and how we feel about it and our mindset around it and what beliefs might be holding us back. Remember, I was talking about the anchors when we're trying to move forward in life. This is also in business, because anything that we apply in life translates to our business. If we're not ready to let go of what no longer serves us, it did for a time, but it can't come with us into the next chapter. If we're not conscious of that and able to work through that, we can't get to where we want to go. And it's just not talked about. It's more about like, oh, do more or try this, and we're trying all these things outside of us, and we're not taking time to even look inside of us and if that even feels right. I'm going to teach you what a yes feels like in your body, what a no feels like. Well, I'm going to lead you so that you can teach yourself, essentially. I don't the way I see it, I feel like I'm like a curiosity coach, or I don't even know if I want to call myself a coach, but I'm a mentor or teacher, but I teach curiosity. I help people to get curious in different ways, different aspects of their life, so that they can just live more expanded and be aware of more, so that they can decide how they want to step forward. Because when we're awake to things, when we're aware of things, we can make more decisions and we're not just living on autopilot or in survival. And nervous system work is so much a part of that, right? So we're talking about us as business owners, more about us and how we're showing up, who we are in our business, what our values are. We are learning the foundation so we can build up and overflow outside of us instead of pulling things in, other strategies from other people, trying all these things. We are learning discernment, how we're connecting to the work that we're doing, how it feels, and prioritizing that way, making sure that we're following our energy. We're honoring our energy. We're honoring our integrity, we're honoring our values, because when we are focused on things outside of ourselves, which is a natural condition, there's lots of opportunities to make decisions and take actions that are actually outside of our own authenticity, outside of our own values and our integrity. And this is where business can be kind of a slippery slope, and we can lose ourselves in our business because of that, because we're striving for things that aren't even, it's not even within our own values. But we see this like external validation or whatever we're reaching for, and especially if it's encouraged from for network marketing, if it's encouraged by our uplines, we're just trying to like be part of the team. We're getting this fitting in, this belonging thing, right? We want to like keep up with everyone and not feel, we want to feel like we're contributing and we're like in the mix with it, but we're losing ourselves in the meantime. We're losing ourselves through the process. That was my experience. I don't know if anyone else has felt that way, but from my experience, I was doing that for a while. There's things I look back and I'm like, oh man, I was not connected to myself when I made that decision or I tried that strategy. It really was not in alignment. And there were times where I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I said no, but sometimes I still tried things and I was like, nah, that is, yeah, I wish I didn't do that or whatever. But there's always learning to it too, right? And it really took me losing my dad and life halting for a long time to, like, I was forced to take a step back. I was hustle, hustle, hustle for a long time and came to a screeching halt. And that gave me, it forced me to take pause and really look at, what am I doing here? Like, like, do I even know where I'm going with this? Do I even know what I want anymore? Or am I just trying to like please people that I'm surrounded with because I want to feel like I belong and I'm keeping up with them? And I had to ask myself a lot of hard questions and start to really connect back with myself, my own values, discover what they were, and start to build from that place. And if I'm curious about something that someone else is doing that looks fun, I'll try it, but having that discernment of, does that feel like a yes? Does that bring me joy? Does that feel expansive? Or does that feel like a no? It's not. I'm gonna struggle to get it done. I'm gonna procrastinate because it's not in line is with my energy or my values, right? There's a big difference. We're gonna talk about self-care for entrepreneurs. Like I said, nervous system work, self-care is so important. And I can give a quick example. I've been on the go a lot lately. I had like a weird, it felt like it was a cold coming on, but then it was gone in like 24 hours. It's so bizarre. It's like I was purging something, but I haven't had a ton of downtime. And I noticed over the last few days, I've had like no ambition to do things that I would normally be pretty lit up about. And the thought occurred to me earlier today. I was like, When was the last time I really kind of did some self-care? Like I haven't gone for a cold dip in a while. I've been holding down the fort while my mom's gone, checking in on my granny, which I love to do, but when you're, trying to work and do all the other things, it just adds on. And then we feel like we have all these responsibilities and we're not taking care of ourselves within that. And I think that's why I got sick for a bit. So it occurred to me, I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm so like uninspired to do the things that actually like I'd normally be so excited to create content around. I haven't even like done anything for myself lately. And it's interesting because I've been learning about this stuff and talking about it, but it's really interesting when the awareness, like, it starts to click in faster than it would. Like, there was a time, obviously not long ago, because I just had the aha today that it would have kind of flown under the radar. I might have just chalked it up to just like, "Oh, I guess I'm just tired," or whatever, but I really kinda got curious, and I was like, "I would normally be excited to do this. Why am I dragging my feet so much?" And it's just like, "Oh my god, you haven't done anything for yourself lately. You need to prioritize something." We are going to talk about our humanness, so some of this evolution stuff and how it holds us back, lessons in mindset for entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about triggers in our business. Who here gets triggered in their business? And like things you see, or someone leaves your VIP group, or on like your online community. It can be really triggering. We can put our value in the things that we do. And that can be a slippery slope. That can be like danger bay. So we're going to talk about that because it's important. Having awareness and tools to navigate these things. It's not about like fixing it or getting rid of it. It's just about like going through it and understanding it and healing it when we can. It just makes it starts to cut out all the noise that keeps us back from having a successful and joyful business, a soul-led business. We will talk about stepping into the unknown, sustainable goal setting, and taking inspired action. We're going to talk a little bit about like intuition and the we're going to talk about fear, what holds us back, how we can kind of navigate that, being able to pick up on it quickly. So those are kind of the five main topics. Now, this is, like I said, it's 5 weeks, 5 topics. The investment is $111. I've kind of kept it that way. There is a add-on. You can add on either like for anyone who's signing up, you can add it on right at the beginning, or it'll be offered throughout the course. If you decide you want to use the add-on, we can do a private session, you and I, coaching, $55. So good price. And it can help you kind of integrate, if you want it at the end, to integrate what you've learned and just kind of like talk about it and come up with a bit of a plan for you. It's a 1 hour. So that's an option. Also, so we're going to start the week of May 13th. And I have a bonus. If you sign up before Friday, what is it, the 3rd? You sign up before Friday the 3rd, I will create a business oracle reading for you. Now, business oracle is a card reading, and I tune in and set the intention to provide wisdom and guidance that's relevant to your business. If you have a question, you can set that intention privately. Don't tell me. Let's see what the cards say. I think that keeps it really magical, and I like it better that way if I don't know. So we can collaborate that way. It's super fun. I've done quite a few of them, and there's always good reception to it. Especially if the people keep them and go back over them to see how relevant how it ends up panning out. What I wrote down here, I did some journaling on this. The vibe of this course, like the essence of it, when I was kind of feeling into like what I want to deliver, it's refreshing, it's deeply introspective, it's validating, and it's transformative. It's for the person who wants to get out of hustle mode, wants to just have a nourishing experience and build sustainably for the long run. It's not about chasing all the carrots and trying to get to the top so quickly that you forget why you're even doing what you're doing. So that's kind of the long and short. Are there any questions before we finish up here? I'll be talking about it this week. The bonus is good till Friday. We're on Monday right now. Um, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions either now or privately. Pop them in the comments. I'll see them after, like in this video or just like in any post. I don't care. But it could be one of the when I was talking about like how I had an announcement, you could pop it in there. Wherever, ask your questions. And yeah, I'm excited for it. This is something I've been thinking about for over a year. And it just feels like I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to deliver these topics that I just think there's a gap in the industry. And for those who feel like they're soul led and they want to build a business that's an extension of your own true essence, the things that you're passionate about, this is how to do it without getting lost in all the rest of it. We're cutting out the noise. We're doing it from within. We're building it sustainably. And sometimes it can take longer, at least at the start, than we could quantum leap, oftentimes, but it feels good. It feels nourishing. There's no like burnout vibe to it. I can't do the burnout anymore. And I'm ready to kind of walk the walk with other people. So if you're ready, send me a message. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening or whatever time of day if you're catching the replay. Any questions, let me know. And thanks so much for hanging out. I love when people are on and participating. It means a lot that you would take time out of your day, out of your life to tune in live with me. So it's the appreciation, the gratitude is not lost on me. All right, friends, talk soon and have a good one. Good night and rest well. Bye.